Hello, folks. We are back at section 5.3 from the Algebra 2 book, and we're going to do the second part of this section. So it's 5.3b, which is writing quadratic equations. I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to move over to my smartboard and work after we get started here. This part, we're going backwards from what we did in the first part. So we're going to pick up kind of there. I'm going to show you one of the factoring ones we did from 5.3a, and then show you how we're reversing it in this one. All right, so I am going to bring you over to my board, and hopefully this will all work for us. So what we're going to be doing today, just to remind you of what we had. I'm going to move this out of my way. All right, just to remind you, what we were doing before was we had, for example, a problem where we had x squared minus 10x plus 21. I think we did this in the last one where it's equal to 0. And we said factor this, right? The directions here were to factor this quadratic. So we looked at it and we said, well, we've got to find factors of 21 that add to negative 10. And we got negative 3 and negative 7. So we said this was x minus 3 and x minus 7 equals 0. And that would give us our x squared minus 10x plus 21. That was factoring. Now, when we were trying to solve by factoring, remember when it said solve, you had to go that extra step now that you factored, and you had to set each one of these equal to 0. So we had these two things to solve. That gave us x equals 3 and x equals 7. So we had our solutions, right? These solutions, what are they? They're where this equation, this quadratic equation, is equal to 0. So graphically, these are the x-intercepts, aren't they? This is where y is 0 when x is 3 or x is 7. This is where it's crossing the x-axis. We call these roots as well. These solutions to these quadratics are the roots of the equation, what you've called before also zeros. All right, these are kind of interchangeable words. When we talk about a root or a 0, we're talking about where the y value is 0, where the equation crosses the x-axis. So what we're going to be doing now on this one, in this particular section, is we're going to be working backwards. You're going to be asked something like this, where it's going to say, write a quadratic equation with the given roots. And it will tell you that they want the equation in standard form. All right, so what is that going to look like? Well, the first example is just something like this. If I gave you 2 and 5, they gave me roots. All right, what do I do with them? Well, I want to write a quadratic equation with these roots. So what we're saying is, going back to this, is that was my 3 and my 7 before. Those are my roots of this equation. So now what I've got to do is work backwards. Well, when I was here, I got there from going here first, setting everything equal to 0. So let's go back to here. Let's, excuse me, write this out where we say x equals 2 and x equals 5, right? Now let's set them equal to 0, just like we did going backwards from what we did before. If I subtract 2 from each side, I would have x minus 2 equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. So now, again, I'm going to keep switching back and forth so you can see. Now we've gotten back to this level, right? we're working backwards, guys. We want to end up with this type of equation. So the next step is what? Write these two things that we have as the pieces on the left side, write them as factors. So now, going back to where we were here, I'm going to take these and say x minus 2 times x minus 5. And since x minus 2 equals 0 or x minus 5 equals 0, when we multiply them, one or the other is 0, then overall it's 0. Now we have an equation. It's not fully simplified yet. It's not in standard form. But we have our quadratic equation at this point just in factored form. So the next step, hopefully it's obvious at this point, but if not, the next step is multiply it out. We take this and say, let's just do our FOIL. X squared minus 5x minus 2x and plus 10 equals 0. Got to have that equal 0 because it's not an equation without that. And then we simplify. X squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 0. We have our quadratic equation. It is in standard form. We are good to go. Easy peasy, right? All right, let's do another one. Another example, same directions. If we have, let's do 3 and negative 5. We already did 2 close there. Let's do 3 and negative 6. All right, let's use a negative number. So again, follow the steps. First thing, x equals 3. X equals negative 6. Now, move it over. X minus 3 equals 0. X plus 6, because I have to add 6 to each side, equals 0. Now I have x minus 3 times x plus 6 equals 0. And almost done. Multiply it out. X squared plus 6x, here minus 3x. And finally, the last is a negative 18 and equals 0. So simplifying this, x squared, 6x minus 3x is a positive 3x, minus 18 equals 0, and we have our equation. Easy as can be, right? If you think of what you did before, we're just doing it backwards now in this step. All right, now let's do another one. Let's get a little harder. Let's do something a little bit different. Let's do 2/3 and 1/2. Uh-oh, fractions. Everyone loves fractions, right? We're going to get over fraction phobia this year, guys. Don't worry, just do the same thing. We're going to follow the same steps. We're going to take the same process. And you're going to hear me say a lot this year, trust the process, all right? The first step was to set these equal to x equal to these things, these numbers. So x equals each of them. Now, I know you don't want to make it x minus 2/3 and x minus 1/2, because then when you got to multiply, you're going to get a bunch more fractions. You can do that, and I'm going to show you that next, but I'm going to show you an easier way. Let's get rid of the fraction here by multiplying everything by, we get 3x equals 2, right? Then subtract 2, and I get 3x minus 2 equals 0. Now I've got it set equal to 0. I've got my factor. Same thing here. What am I going to multiply by? Well, I got 1/2, so I'm going to multiply by 2. So I'll get 2x equals 1, getting rid of the fractions first, and then get everything to one side. And now we can take our factors, multiply them, and of course they're going to equal 0 because one of them is 0. And now we multiply. 3x times 2x is 6x squared. Outside would be negative 3x. Inside is a negative 4x. And last is a positive 2, right? And that's equal to 0. To finish, we have 6x squared minus 7x plus 2 equals 0, and we've got this done. Now, I said you could have gone back, and I'm just going to retread on the same problem very quickly and show you the difference. if I had just taken my 2/3 and my 1/2 and said x equals 2/3 and x equals 1/2, I would have had x minus 2/3 equals 0 and x minus 1/2 equals 0. And I could still multiply those. And they equal 0. Multiply them out. X squared minus 1/2 x minus 2/3, whoops, minus 2/3 x plus, what would that be? 2/6 or 1/3 equals 0. Do you see how it gets a little more messy? You can do this, but it's going to make you do more fraction work than getting rid of them right in the beginning. We would have to think of this as 3/6 and this as 4/6. And so what would we have? X squared minus 7/6 plus 1/3, 7/6x, sorry, plus 1/3 equals 0. And now we'd have to, again, that's not done because what did it say? It said in the directions to write this in standard form. That's not standard form, it's got fractions. So we'd have to multiply everything by 6. We'd get 6x squared minus 7x plus 2 equals 0. Same answer, same result, just a different process. So I've seen people do this because they're not afraid of fractions, they like it. I think most of you will have better luck doing it this way. But it takes practice. Looking at it, it looks really easy. When I do this, every year I have people say, oh, I get it. And then they go and try to do it. And it's halting at first. You don't get it right away. I'm going to give you one more example. We're going to shut it down. This is it. All right. So let's see. We are going to do, let's do another fraction. Let's do 5/7 and 3/4 are our roots. All right. So again, I'm going to write that as x equals 5/7 and x equals 3/4. Now, I'm going to, again, try to look at this as, all right, I hate fractions. I'm getting rid of the fractions. 7 is my multiplier, right? Because I got 7 in the denominator. So I'm going to get 7x equals 5. And then I'm going to subtract the 5, and I get 7x minus 5 equals 0. And we're set to 0, so we're good. We got our factor. Again, guys, these are factors. I want you to know the words so you know what we're talking about when we talk about factors versus roots. The factor is this thing, 7x minus 5, right? That's a factor that we're going to use to get our equation. Same thing here. What am I going to use? I'm going to give you a second. What am I going to multiply this by? Everyone knows 4, right? I heard you all say it. So it is 4x equals 3. Subtract that 3. And we get that. So now, again, we got another factor. We take our factors, we multiply them. And again, these are roots, so one of them 0. So when we write these out, they multiply to 0. Now we multiply. 28x squared. On the outside, it would be minus 21x. On the inside, minus 20x. And last is plus 15 equals 0. And we can simplify this. 28x squared minus 41x plus 15 equals 0. We have a standard form quadratic equation. That's it, guys. It's that simple. The second part is just doing that. All right. So I'm going to head back over to my desk and we'll shut this one down. All right, folks. So that's what we're doing today. You have a homework assignment for this. And again, it's from that packet. Remember the 5.3 to 5.6 workbook that we have on Schoology. So go in there. I believe we're doing page 21 today. Then we'll do a little bit of roundup of both 5.3a and 5.3b with page 23 tomorrow. Or is it page 20? I can't remember. It's 22 today and 23 tomorrow, something like that. Maybe 21 today and 23 tomorrow, or some relationship like that. Anyways. That's it, guys. That's what we're doing. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.